against them over this subject matter as a very important matter. And he needed sufficient time.
The concern is that he's raised so many issues.
Yeah, so you have
to
time.
have a very effective conversation.
You
need
have
to tackle them as
you
much
have
as
time.
possible.
Can we start?
Let's start off by making it very clear that when it comes to the cost of policy, it is not unique to the Gold Board, the Bank of Ghana, and the related gold matters we are discussing. There are so many issues in this country which are of a policy nature and where we still track costs and where we assume efficiency. I'll give you a very practical example that everybody in Ghana can understand. Take Cocoa Board. In essence, there's not much difference between Cocoa Board and Gold Board. Cocoa Board is also not a limited liability company. It's also a statutory public institution. It was not set up primarily for profit. It was set up primarily to promote the development of the cocoa sector, the welfare of farmers, and various other matters, including obviously to promote foreign exchange. Which is why there was a time the syndicated loan, we used to track it and its impact on the exchange rate in this country, if you remember. And yet still, we track Cocoa Board losses. In fact, the chief executive of the Cocoa Board, serving the same government as my very good friend here, has been consistent about the challenges that these losses pose to the cocoa sector in this country. In fact, I've shown in my article, which I'm happy to circulate through your online portal, that Cocoa Board losses are lower than the losses we are talking about, significantly for the last 4 years. So, if we are willing to track the efficiency of Cocoa Board's use of resources, we cannot in any way be restrained from tracking the efficiency that Gold Board is currently operating with. It's the same logic. Okay. Anybody who tells you otherwise doesn't know what he's talking about. It's absolutely the same logic. Cocoa Board is a policy institution. Its primary goal is to promote the cocoa sector, but we are very, very sensitive to losses there. Second example, fuel, which this man knows more about than most people on this panel. If we talk to you about the efficiency
of radio listeners, his reference to this man is...
If you haven't exercised in years, you have to start small with my beginner-friendly Tai Chi class. 3 reasons every man over 40...
Fuel has immense implications for everything in this country, right? Fuel has a huge impact on inflation. Fuel has a huge impact on industrial activity. Fuel has a huge impact in a cascading manner across different economic activities. And when we subsidize fuel, it was because we knew it was important to people.
Correct.
And that is why for a lot of time we're not doing cost recovery. And yet still, when the cost mounted up to a certain point, this very man, Senator Hussein, in the studio, was at the forefront of his industry, trying to impose taxes on us to collect their money, because at the end of the day, somebody had to pay. So the fact that there's a policy which is beneficial to the country doesn't mean that if the policy is inefficient and is generating costs, and those costs are not sustainable, we shouldn't be concerned. We should be concerned, even though it's beneficial.
I beg you, since you mentioned man, let's get it wrong. You are absolutely wrong yesterday, tomorrow, and forevermore. If you say that the subsidy policy in oil was beneficial to this country in any shape or form.
I'm saying that from a government point of view,
it was never beneficial to the economy. No, that's your perspective. It's not perspective.
That's your perspective.
This is not science. This is paper.
If the government
you've not done that research. You haven't done that research. No. Speak about the cost, but don't talk about benefits. No. I respect you when you say cost. But don't talk about benefits. Absolutely wrong.
After that intervention, relax and let him.
I did my thesis on this particular matter. It was not productive, and that is why we told government it will not work.
Thank you. Now relax.
So get that right. If the government has a policy position that subsidizing fuel is good for the people, it's not up to us to come and...
I'm saying what is the economic benefit of
I disagree with you.
Value it. You can't value it. There's no value for it. So you are wrong. You are wrong.
You have your turn.
It's okay to talk about cost, but don't talk about benefits. You haven't studied it.
Thank you. You made a point. Relax. You have your turn. Thank you.
Absolutely. I disagree with the overvaluation of the city. We spent over $1 billion. Tell me what the value.
Hold it back.
Not trying to hold it back, but you mentioned my name.
Thank you. Yes.
I disagree with the overvaluation of the city to a certain extent.
That's okay.
But the government in power claims that what I consider an overvaluation is my policy position. It's not an overvaluation and it's beneficial to the country. Because the government that is in power, that assesses the policy benefits. So if the government has decided that, from my point of view, increasing the price of fuel at the pump will have effects that are damaging to social welfare, and therefore I will subsidize fuel costs, it's not up up to us in this studio to say that as far as we are concerned, all the governments in Ghana who have done that are idiots. And we are the only wise people.
No, hold.
The government of this country over the years decided not to allow for full cost transmission in fuel. We have ramped up subsidies. They have continued to do it, and they have claimed that we cannot assume, because of the fact that we are neoliberal in our thinking, that just because you maintain efficiency there, people don't suffer when fuel prices go beyond what they can pay. And they have decided to then done it. Energy. Today, we are subsidizing energy. I hope you are all aware that we are subsidizing electricity in this country. The government continues to bear the cost beyond cash waterfall mechanism and all of that. We are told that at the very least, about $500 million of additional cost or so are being piled up, which the government is absorbing. Those are subsidies. There's a policy decision having been taken that we will keep the lights prices or the electricity prices reasonable because some people can afford it. And yet still, we all agree, in this room, if we took a poll, just as he disagrees with fuel subsidies and I disagree with fuel subsidies, if we took a poll on this table, apart from who works in government, all of us will agree that no, we shouldn't have electricity subsidies because it's generally not very good. It doesn't mean that there are no benefits to keeping the prices where they are now in electricity or water. There are policy benefits. And yet still, most of us on this table, around this table, except my good friend who I'm not going to put him in a tight spot, will say that we should not let electricity subsidies power. So if you have a fiscal subsidy for a program, and I'm going to explain in a moment why we believe that the Gold for Reserves program and a related gold program, Green Gold for Oil, all of those programs are effectively fiscal subsidies if you make losses. Then a fiscal subsidy program of that nature must be justified, obviously, and you can have a political justification for it, but it does not stop us, from our perspective as policy people, from arguing that they are inefficient. So that's number one. Number two, Gold for Reserves was not the only part, or was not the only one amongst the different gold programs that were being run. We also had Gold for Oil. The previous government was entirely emphatic that Gold for Oil was extremely beneficial. They did, no matter what we said, they continued to insist that Gold for Oil was beneficial. And they very good. Somebody who
it's my industry. You have sat on panels on this. I don't want to talk too much.
But the policy benefits.
Please.
I mean, you are my man.
Solely yours.
Exactly. The fact is a science of our neck.
Exactly.
You can't have a view about 1 + 1 is equal to 2.
No. So let's respect people's view on
matter. Disagree, but we can't disagree.
I can give you other one reasons why I think Gold for Oil.
That is the point I wanted to make. That is exactly the point I wanted to make.
Right.
So in that view,
in the end, I'll find out from Bright when he says these subsidy programs are inefficient, and we have this gold board program or the domestic gold purchase program that has helped to hold the economy stable up to this point and freed up people, and people are excited about. If it is inefficient, what do we do in place of it if he wants it replaced?
It's a matter of factual analysis. The good gentleman on my right is saying that in the absence of Gold for Oil, there will have been problems in the country in respect of fuel price and will have had cascading effects. They were in government and they had the policy privilege to determine that was the benefit. We fought against it because we had a different perspective around the efficiency of it. And therefore, we cannot, in the next moment, argue that because the government has been able to show certain benefits in respect of these gold programs, the government is not responsible for accounting for the efficiency of those programs. In fact, the current government has been emphatic that as far as they are concerned, Gold for Oil was a problem. And they've cancelled it. That tells you that in the span of 2 governments, policy positions can change. And therefore, it's very surprising when we raise issues about the current gold program, and we say we also believe the current gold program is inefficient, and they argue that that particular position cannot be taken because the last time we were talking about inefficiency in Gold for Oil and the rest of it, that was a different matter entirely. It can be a different matter entirely. There are similar logics around fiscal subsidies of this nature. So that's point 2. Point 3, on Bawa Rock and the rest of it, we've not concluded our investigations into Bawa Rock, which is why if you look at the articles that I have put out, I've been very careful in raising the issue around concentration of risk and not about issues of ethics, because we don't really have the full details. But I will explain a few things for people to understand why we shouldn't look only at the battle around the $240 million as exhaustive of the issues that are at play. Let me me give a very interesting hypothetical scenario. If you have a non-transparent system, we don't know how the losses appear. The CEO of the entity responsible won't even acknowledge their losses. And then the next moment he says, maybe there's some cost somewhere. And it's all murky. Here's a potential risk. The risk that emerge. Oh, man.
No, relax. Relax.
That's what we spend a lot of time. It's the same thing. Allow me to speak. Let me give a very hypothetical scenario. Imagine that tomorrow, some off-taker somewhere in Ghana goes and sits in India and registers a company. And that company becomes an off-taker. Today, we don't disclose the off-takers to us. We have had to do our own research to find out who the off-takers are and the rest of it, because they don't publish it. And then that off-taker is some Ghanaian person. He's sitting there in India. He has the means to, acquire USD because there's almost a guarantee that he make profit, and I'll explain how that matters. And then you give the person a discount, and then you give the person room to manipulate purity, resource, and the likes of it. And you give them room for all these other potential deficiencies. I'm going to explain something very carefully. Ultimately, when you send the gold to that person will end up making a significant profit. And that's what people are not paying attention to. What, from our point of view, is a discount, from the point of view of the other person, the counterparty, it's an implied premium. It's a kind of profit for them. So if, for instance, their real cost, in terms of their financing cost, in terms of their asset cost, etc., was 1%. But somehow we collaborate and we collude and we make it 3%. And we pay them the 3% discount. From that person's point of view, that's a 2% profit. It's a very simple symmetrical balance. So in those circumstances, we are interested in understanding the full chain of where the potential losses may arise, which is why we have to stop this sophistry around whether or not they were lost or not, because there is no doubt that when it comes to the gold that we get and we benchmark it against world prices, and the money that comes back in terms of dollars is not equivalent. There's no doubt about that. The IMF insists that we should call it trading losses. We did not use that term. You've read the IMF review yourself. In connection with Article 4 and other type of consultations, it's a worldwide treaty which makes the IMF, give the IMF the right to come into our country. People think it's only because we've gone for ECF and things like that, and therefore who is the IMF to come and tell us? People don't understand it. The IMF is a treaty organization. We as a country are members of the IMF. We are the ones who, as part of the treaty, has allowed the IMF to come into our country and look into things. Countries in the world who are not on IMF programs like ECF and the like, through the consultation process mechanism of Article 4, still allow IMF to come in. So even if you are a rich country or whatever, it doesn't make a difference. As long as we are part of that treaty organization, the IMF surveillance function applies. So the IMF has the right to go to any country in the world, look at the way you run your economy, and write whatever they want, so long as it's reasonable and within the engagement that they have with authorities. This document that you see was a product primarily of the interaction between IMF and authorities. The IMF looked very carefully at the data and concluded that there were trading losses. You cannot all of a sudden convert a trading loss into something that's a purely administrative matter. A trading loss means it's a commercial loss. It means that you bought the gold at a certain price, you do not realize that price in the end of the cycle. Nothing else will be a trading loss. Anybody who can convince you that a trading loss is something other than a commercial loss is simply being sophisticated about it. Because a trading loss will only arise on the buy and the sell side. So after the IMF have done that work and concluded there's a trading loss, they have gone back and forth with authorities. They finally written a report, which usually would not be done on the blind side of the authorities. We now come back and try and convince the whole country that there were no trading losses. That's why we have a difference of opinion with our very good and honorable friend sitting next to us. And he has acknowledged that the trading loss phrase was used in the report. The only person doing trading in this situation is the person licensing people to go and buy, and the person that is exporting that activity, only subject to the extent that he claims is the Bank of Ghana who chooses the off-takers. We don't know. If it's the Bank of Ghana that chooses the off-takers, if the Bank of Ghana that negotiates with the off-takers the discount mechanisms and the rest of it, then it's a shared blame. Because it means that one is responsible on the buying side, and whatever discounts and premium I apply on the buying side, and one is responsible on the selling side, whatever discounts or premium I apply on the selling side. At the very least, it's a joint effort. Now, so we are concerned about, obviously, the buying side and the premium discount that I apply there, and then we are concerned about the selling side, where we have issues concerning whether or not the off-take discount and the rest are competitive. How do you know it's competitive? You know it's competitive. There is a program that allows competitive bidding on the off-taker side as well. So if all the people that want to buy Ghana's gold, there's a platform They can make quotes, they can make the bid and ask spreads can be calculated. We can all go in there, we can look. It's okay, these are the companies that have decided to buy. When we do our research, the information that we get is that the self-finance aggregators are currently complaining that right now, because of the way that the whole program has been set up, it becomes very difficult for them to compete with Bawa Rock. That's what they are complaining about. They are telling us that right now, as it is, Bawa Rock, beyond obviously the fact that it sits at the apex, is competing with the self-finance aggregators. It's not really necessarily buying from the self-finance aggregator, obviously. And there's no requirement under the law that it buys from the self-finance aggregators. But the truth of the matter is that because of its advantage on the financing side, we have to ask ourselves a question. The aggregator gets money from the Bank of Ghana. Is it interest-free? We say, yes, it's interest-free. You can tell us if it's not interest-free. The self-finance aggregator gets money from their own banks. Is that interest-free? We know it's not interest-free. You have someone that is sourcing money commercially, competing with someone who is getting money from the government. Who will win? So telling us ultimately that the other self-finance aggregators in the middle and the rest of it doesn't make a difference. Because one of them is
aggregator license.
Good. Now, what is interesting around the aggregator license issue is very simple. When you apply for it and you are 31-something applications, the CEO says that as far as he's concerned, only one was eligible. We don't have any mechanism of transparency in this process. We don't know, for instance, let me give you a very practical example. We talk about NCA and those kind of matters. NCA licensing in the telecom sector is primarily by way of auction of certain resources and the likes of it. So in some instances, there's some degree of transparency because at the very least, you get some degree of information from the auction processes. If they are, for instance, auctioning a numbering resource or a spectrum resource or something of that nature. In this case, we have only his word to take for his. We have to take him at his word.
We have the public. Anybody who has applied and is compliant, you come and tell us.
So this morning, so the 45 minutes ago, you are expecting that by now we should have 100 people.
Right. It's
with
just 1 week. It's just 1 week, 24 hours. Somebody should show up.
But I'm saying that he just threw out that challenge now.
Yes, it's good.
So now, it's not now that I will be able to have that information.
Okay, so let's give him the benefit of the doubt.
Exactly. We will give him the benefit of the doubt in respect of Bawa Rock because we don't have that. But that doesn't mean that people are wrong to raise issues. I don't think Honorable Kwadwo Okonkwo was wrong to raise issues about how he became the sole aggregator. I'll give you a very practical example. When you go to the Mineral Commission's website, when you go to the former PMC's website and the rest of it, you get a sense of who was exporting gold out of the country. In some respects, who was exporting gold out of the country was very important because it gives you an idea of who is active in the industry and the likes of it. When we initially did searches on those databases to see who was exporting gold, we didn't see any Bawa Rock. It wasn't popping up. We're seeing the likes of Red Sapphire, we're seeing AU Minerals, we're seeing all of these kinds as major license exporters. But today, we're not seeing Bawa Rock.
Today we are being told that he was an aggregator.
No, he was a buying agent for some of these.
It's not we are being told, though. So we have been shown the documentation.
All you have been shown, that is conclusive in this matter about 3 things. You've been shown that he was a buying agent for another company, AA Minerals, who all of us know is a very prominent company in this country, who for some reason can't get an aggregator license, because for some reason can't get an insurance guarantee or a performance guarantee.
And so they should come and tell us.
Let me analyze it for the public to. I mean, we are not the only people in listening to this.
Yeah, but
so let me explain and break it to people. They were buying agents for some companies. For some reason, those companies that were buying agents for cannot qualify. For some reason, they cannot get a performance bond. For some reason, after doing all the assessment and the rest of it, only Bawa Rock, who was not a major feature in exporting of minerals out of this, gold out of this country, when you look at those lists over the last 5 years, somehow because it was a buying agent.
He's thrown an open challenge to them. If they qualified but were discriminatingly blocked,
I am not suggesting wrong. Yes. I am not suggesting wrong. Okay. I am explaining where Honorable Kwadwo Okonkwo and others will have got their suspicion that there may be something wrong. Which is okay. It's a logical and a rational position when you know the industry a little bit, and you know that this was not one of the players that was the more prominent, one of the more prominent players. And then somehow only he managed to get an insurance bond guarantee of some kind. And I'm explaining to you also that in this country, we know for sure that the insurance companies in this country, they don't have the extensive capital that will go to the kind of trade that is happening, unless they are a syndicate. If you take a single insurance company in this country and you look at the total exposure, risk exposure that we are dealing with, there's an imbalance. So we have to assume that there's a syndicate, and he knows very well what I'm talking about. There has to be a syndicate of insurance companies that are backing this risk. We don't have any of those information. This very honorable gentleman, we have said a lot.
Then why should we elevate it? Why should we elevate it to that point to require further duty and burden?
No, I'm trying to explain to you that
on the gold board.
No, because a lot of people don't understand due diligence. If I, as a policy activist, I'm doing due diligence on this matter, most of what Mr. Jemfi said was very useful. But yeah, about 40% of what I need to come to the conclusion that actually there's no risk. There are issues
there cannot be no risk.
Very good. I'm talking about risk on the policy and ethical side.
Okay.
So from a policy and ethical side, I had to know, for instance, which is this insurance company that issued this performance guarantee. What was the nature of the guarantee? There are so many different products, financial products that are used to manage this.
It's listed on their website. I saw it yesterday night.
What is listed on their website?
Yes, the insurance policy.
The full copy of the policy.
It's on their website.
A copy of the Bawa Rock insurance policy.
Not the requirement, the policy requirement.
I'm talking about the nature of the instrument that has convinced
that is exactly what you have in there.
No, but
that's we are saying.
Let's get your turn.
The terms of the product.
And I just must remind you that you have done about 20 minutes now.